You really thought I'd want to celebrate with a woman who can't even keep her own house from falling apart? Mason's words cut through me like a knife, leaving me frozen in our dimly lit kitchen. The carefully prepared anniversary dinner I'd spent hours on sat untouched on the table, candles flickering accusingly. My name is Lydia, and this is the moment my marriage began to crumble. I stared at my husband, searching for any trace of the man I'd fallen in love with. Mason, I don't understand. What's going on? He scoffed, loosening his tie. What's going on is that I'm tired of pretending, Lydia. This whole charade, it's exhausting. Charade? My voice wavered. Our marriage is a charade to you? Mason's eyes, once warm and inviting, now held nothing but cold disdain. Wake up, Lydia. We haven't been happy for a long time. I felt my world tilting on its axis. But just last week you said... I say a lot of things, he interrupted. It's called being polite. Something your family could learn a thing or two about. The mention of my family sparked a flicker of defiance. Leave them out of this. This is about us, Mason. About our vows, our promises. Promises? He laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the room. Like the promise that your family's company was on the up and up? That turned out to be a real winner, didn't it? I recoiled as if slapped. Is that what this is about? Money. Mason's silence was damning. I can't believe this, I whispered, anger starting to replace the shock. You married me for my family's business? He shrugged, reaching for his coat. Among other things. But let's face it, Lydia, you're not exactly the catch I thought you were. As he moved towards the door, a memory flashed through my mind. Our wedding day, his eyes shining with what I thought was love. Had it all been a lie? Where are you going? I demanded, my voice stronger now. Mason paused, hand on the doorknob. For a moment I saw a flicker of something. Regret? Shame? Cross his face. But then it was gone, replaced by that infuriating smirk. Out, he said simply. Don't wait up. The door slammed behind him, leaving me alone with the ruins of my marriage and a burning question. How had I been so blind? The morning light filtered through the curtains, mocking my sleepless night. I'd spent hours replaying Mason's words, searching for clues I might have missed. Now, with a hollow pit in my stomach, I began to dig. Mason's laptop sat on his desk, password protected. But I knew him, or thought I did. 3 attempts later, I was in. What I found made me wish I wasn't. Emails. Dozens of them to and from a SB. The most recent dated just yesterday. My darling, soon we won't have to hide. Elle's family is on the verge of collapse, and when it does, I'll be free. Wait for me. M. My hands shook as I scrolled through more messages, each one a dagger to my heart. There were hotel receipts, expensive gifts, all hidden from our joint account. And then I saw it. A photo of Mason with a stunning blonde, their lips locked in a passionate embrace. Sienna, I whispered, recognizing Mason's ex-girlfriend. The pieces were falling into place, forming a picture I desperately wished I could unsee. A text alert on Mason's phone made me jump. I shouldn't look, I told myself. But I was past the point of no return. Meeting at 2. Don't be late. S. My mind raced. I glanced at the clock, 1:30. Without thinking, I grabbed my keys. The drive to Mason's office was a blur. I parked across the street, heart pounding as I waited. At precisely 2 p.m., a sleek sports car pulled up. The blonde from the photo stepped out, her designer heels clicking on the pavement. Sienna Blake. Of course. Wealthy, connected, everything Mason had always wanted. Everything I wasn't. I watched as Mason greeted her with a kiss, far more passionate than any he'd given me in months. They disappeared into the building, leaving me with a choice. I could confront them, create a scene, but what would that accomplish? Mason had made his feelings clear. No, this required a different approach. As I drove home, a plan began to form. Mason thought my family's business was failing? He was using me for connections? Fine. 2 could play at that game. I pulled into our driveway, a newfound determination coursing through me. Mason wanted to play with fire? I'd show him just how badly he could get burned. For now, though, I had a role to play. The dutiful, unsuspecting wife. Let him think he had me fooled. Let him underestimate me. Because Lydia Harper was done being a pawn in someone else's game. It was time to become the queen. The familiar scent of sawdust and coffee greeted me as I entered my father's office. Grant Harper's weathered face lit up at the sight of me, his smile a stark contrast to the coldness I'd grown accustomed to at home. There's my girl, he boomed, enveloping me in a bear hug. To what do I owe this surprise visit? I forced a smile, guilt gnawing at my insides. Can a daughter just drop by to see her dad? Dad's eyes narrowed slightly. He'd always been able to read me like a blueprint. "Everything okay, Lydia? You seem off." "Just work stress," I lied smoothly. "Actually, I was hoping to talk about the Westridge project." "Any updates?" As Dad launched into the details of our latest construction venture, I nodded along, my mind racing. How could I protect him from the truth about Mason? How could I shield our family's legacy from the vulture I'd unwittingly married? A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Dad's assistant poked her head in. "Mr. Harper, the Callaways are here for the lunch meeting." My stomach dropped. I'd forgotten about the monthly family lunch. "Perfect timing," Dad exclaimed. "Lydia can join us." Before I could protest, we were ushered into the conference room. Mason's parents were already seated. His mother Cora's lips pursed in her perpetual look of disapproval. "Lydia," Cora said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "How? Nice to see you. I trust you're keeping busy with your little admin job." I bit back a retort, reminding myself of the role I needed to play. "Oh, you know me, Cora. Always something to do." As the meal progressed, I felt Cora's critical gaze dissecting my every move. When I accidentally knocked over my water glass, her disdain was palpable. "Oh dear," she toothed. "Perhaps if you spent more time on domestic skills and less on whatever it is you do, you might make a proper wife for my Mason." The room fell silent. Dad's fork clattered to his plate. "Now, Cora," he began, but I cut him off. "You're absolutely right," I said, my voice steady despite the rage boiling inside me. "I'll never be the wife Mason deserves. How fortunate he has you to remind him of that fact." Cora's eyes widened in shock at my uncharacteristic response. For a moment, I saw a flicker of something. Respect, perhaps? In her gaze. As we left the conference room, Dad pulled me aside. "Lydia, what's really going on? This isn't like you." I met his concerned eyes, teetering on the edge of confession. But the weight of his expectations of our family's reputation held me back. "Nothing, Dad." I lied again, hating myself for it. "Everything's fine." But as I walked away, I knew one thing for certain. I was done playing by their rules. It was time to write my own. The private investigator's office was cramped and dimly lit, a far cry from the polished world I'd grown accustomed to. But as I sat across from Jack Reeves, his weathered face illuminated by the glow of his computer screen, I knew I was exactly where I needed to be. "Mrs. Callaway," Jack began, his voice gravelly. "I've got some information you might want to see." My heart raced as he turned the screen towards me. Photos of Mason and Sienna filled the display. At restaurants, entering hotels, even kissing in a park near our home. Each image was like a knife twisting in my gut. "There's more," Jack continued, pulling out a manila folder. "Financial records, phone logs, even a copy of a prenup agreement between your husband and MS. "Blake." I froze. "Prenup? They're not even." "Not yet," Jack interrupted. "But from what I've gathered, it's in the works. Your husband seems to be planning an exit strategy." The room spun. I gripped the edge of the desk, steadying myself. "When?" Jack's eyes softened with sympathy. "Based on the communications I've intercepted, he's waiting for something big. A deal involving your father's company. Of course, the Westridge project." Dad had mentioned bringing Mason in as a consultant. It was supposed to be his chance to prove himself to the family. "There's one more thing," Jack said, hesitating. "It seems Mr. Callaway has been misrepresenting the state of your family's business to MS. Blake and her circle. He's painting a picture of a company on the verge of collapse, with him as the potential savior." White-hot anger surged through me. Using my family, manipulating our legacy, it was beyond betrayal. It was war. "Thank you, Mr. Reeves," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'll need copies of everything." As I left the office, my phone buzzed. A text from Mason, working late. "Don't wait up." I almost laughed at the audacity. Instead, I typed back, "No problem. Take your time." Let him think I was still the naive, trusting wife. Let him believe he held all the cards. Because now, armed with the truth and a growing resolve, I was ready to play the game on my terms. Mason thought he was orchestrating some grand finale, but he had no idea the symphony of vengeance I was about to conduct. I dialed my father's number, my mind racing with possibilities. "Dad, it's me. I think it's time we talked about expanding my role in the company. I have some ideas for the Westridge project I'd like to discuss." As I hung up, a small smile played at my lips. Mason wanted to use my family's connections? Fine. I'd give him exactly what he wanted, and so much more than he bargained for. The game was on, and I intended to win. Darling, you've outdone yourself, Mason purred, his eyes roaming appreciatively over the elaborate dinner spread before us. I smiled demurely, playing the role of the perfect wife to perfection. Anything for you, I replied, my voice dripping with honey-coated venom. How was your day at the office? As Mason launched into a carefully edited version of his day, I nodded attentively, all the while my mind raced with the intricate web I was weaving around him. Earlier that day, I'd met with my father under the guise of expanding my role in the company. Dad, I think it's time we brought Mason more fully into the Westridge project, I'd suggested innocently. Dad had beamed with pride. That's my girl, always thinking of the family. What did you have in mind? I outlined a plan that would put Mason at the center of a fictitious deal. One that would appear incredibly lucrative on the surface. Let's keep this between us for now, I'd added. I want it to be a surprise for Mason. Now, watching my husband gloat about his supposed business acumen, I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. Little did he know, every move he made was playing right into my hands. Oh, I almost forgot, I said, feigning excitement. Dad mentioned something about a big opportunity coming up. He wants to meet with you tomorrow. Mason's eyes lit up with barely concealed greed. Really? Did he say what it was about? I shrugged, the picture of nonchalance. Something about the Westridge project. He seemed pretty excited. As Mason peppered me with questions, I deflected skillfully, feeding his anticipation while revealing nothing concrete. By the time we retired to bed, he was practically salivating at the prospect of the imaginary deal I'd dangled before him. Lying beside him in the darkness, I allowed myself a small, triumphant smile. The trap was set. All that remained was for Mason to walk into it willingly. The next morning, I kissed Mason goodbye with saccharine sweetness. Good luck with Dad today, I chirped. I'm sure you'll impress him as always. As soon as he left, I sprang into action. A call to my private investigator confirmed that everything was in place. Another to a trusted colleague at the company ensured that the stage would be set perfectly for Mason's downfall. I caught my reflection in the mirror, barely recognizing the steel-eyed woman staring back at me. Gone was the naive, trusting wife. In her place stood a woman forged in the fires of betrayal, ready to rain down justice on those who had wronged her. Game on, Mason, I whispered to my reflection. Let's see how you handle the spotlight when it reveals your true colors. The grand ballroom of the Westridge Hotel buzzed with anticipation. Investors, business partners, and socialites mingled, their excited chatter filling the air. At the center of it all stood Mason, basking in the attention, his charm turned up to 11. I watched from the sidelines, my heart pounding beneath my carefully chosen gown. Tonight was the culmination of weeks of planning, of sleepless nights and hidden preparations. Tonight, everything would change. Ladies and gentlemen, my father's voice boomed through the speakers. Thank you all for joining us to celebrate the launch of the Westridge project. But before we begin, I'd like to hand the floor over to the man who's been instrumental in bringing this vision to life. My son-in-law, Mason Calloway. Applause erupted as Mason took the stage, his megawatt smile dazzling the crowd. I caught Sienna's eye across the room, noting the hungry look she gave my husband. If only she knew what was coming. Thank you, Grant, Mason began, his voice dripping with false modesty. I'm honored to be a part of this groundbreaking venture. The Westridge project isn't just about building structures. It's about building futures, creating legacies. As Mason launched into his carefully rehearsed speech, I nodded to Jack, my private investigator, who was posing as a waiter. He discreetly made his way to the AV booth. Suddenly, the large screen behind Mason flickered. His voice faltered as images began to appear. Snapshots of him and Sienna in compromising positions, followed by damning email exchanges and financial records. The room fell silent, all eyes darting between the incriminating evidence and Mason's rapidly paling face. What is this? He sputtered, turning to my father in panic. Grant, I can explain. But I was already striding towards the stage, my voice clear and steady as I addressed the stunned audience. What you're seeing is the true face of Mason Calloway, a man who married me for my family's connections, who's been secretly funneling company funds into his own accounts, and who's been planning to leave not just me, but all of you, high and dry once he got what he wanted. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. I turned to face Mason, whose expression had morphed from shock to fury. You bitch, he hissed, lunging towards me. But before he could reach me, security guards appeared, restraining him. I think we've heard enough. My father's voice cut through the chaos, his tone icy. Mason Calloway, you're fired. and I believe the authorities will be very interested in discussing these financial discrepancies with you." As Mason was led away, shouting protests and threats, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The mask of the perfect wife had finally cracked, revealing the strong, determined woman beneath. The room erupted into a frenzy of questions and exclamations, but all I could focus on was the look of pride in my father's eyes as he embraced me. "Well done, Lydia," he whispered. "You've saved this family, and yourself." The aftermath of Mason's public downfall swept through our lives like a hurricane. I stood in the eye of the storm, watching as the pieces fell into place. Cora Calloway's shrill voice echoed through the country club, where I'd arranged to meet her. "How dare you?" she screeched, her perfectly manicured finger jabbing at my chest. "You've ruined my son." I met her gaze coolly. "Your son ruined himself, Cora." I simply exposed the truth. Her face contorted with rage, but beneath it, I saw a flicker of something else, shame perhaps. "He was everything to me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Then maybe you should have raised him better," I replied, turning on my heel and leaving her to face the whispers and stares of her social circle. Across town, Sienna Blake's engagement imploded spectacularly. Oliver, her fiancé, had been in the audience during Mason's exposure. The look of betrayal on his face as he stormed out of the ballroom had been almost as satisfying as Mason's humiliation. My phone buzzed incessantly with messages from Sienna, first angry, then pleading, and finally desperate. I deleted them all without reading. At home, my father enveloped me in a bear hug. "I'm so proud of you, Lydia," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You protected our family, our legacy. You're stronger than I ever realized." His words filled a void I hadn't even known existed. For years, I'd been the dutiful daughter, the perfect wife. Now, I was finally seen for who I truly was. As the dust began to settle, I received word that Mason wanted to see me. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at our lawyer's office. He looked haggard, his once pristine suit rumpled and his eyes bloodshot. "Lydia," he began, his voice hoarse. I'm sorry. I never meant for things to go this far." I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "You're only sorry you got caught, Mason. Let's not pretend otherwise." His facade crumbled. "What do you want from me?" "I've lost everything. My job, my reputation, my family. What more can you take?" I leaned forward, my voice low and steady. "I don't want anything from you, Mason. That's the beauty of it. I'm free. Free from your lies, your manipulation, your mother's disdain. I've reclaimed my life, and you? You're just a cautionary tale." As I stood to leave, Mason called out, his voice desperate. "What am I supposed to do now?" I paused at the door, looking back at the broken man who had once held my heart. "That's not my problem anymore. Goodbye, Mason." Stepping out into the sunlight, I felt lighter than I had in years. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I was excited to see where it would lead. The ink on the divorce papers had barely dried when I stepped into my father's office, my heart racing with a mixture of nervousness and excitement. "Dad," I began, my voice steadier than I felt, "I want to talk to you about my role in the company." Grant Harper looked up from his desk, his eyes twinkling with curiosity. "What did you have in mind, sweetheart?" I took a deep breath. "I want to lead the Westridge project. Not as an admin assistant, but as project manager." For a moment, silence hung in the air. Then, to my surprise, Dad broke into a wide grin. "I was wondering when you'd finally ask," he chuckled. "The position's yours if you want it." Tears pricked at my eyes as I hugged him fiercely. "Thank you, Dad. I won't let you down." The next few months were a whirlwind of activity. I threw myself into the Westridge project, channeling all the determination and strength I'd discovered during my ordeal with Mason. Late nights poring over blueprints and early mornings at construction sites became my new normal. As I walked through the nearly completed Westridge complex, pride swelled in my chest. This wasn't just a building, it was a testament to my resilience, my growth. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. "Board meeting in an hour. Big announcement." Curious, I made my way to the company headquarters. As I entered the boardroom, the faces of our top executives turned to me, some smiling, others appraising. Dad stood at the head of the table, beaming. "Ladies and gentlemen, I have an important announcement to make. After careful consideration, I've decided it's time for me to step down as CEO." Gasps and murmurs filled the room. My heart raced. Surely he didn't mean. "And I'm proud to announce that my daughter, Lydia Harper, will be taking over as the new CEO of Harper Construction." The room erupted in applause, but I barely heard it over the pounding in my ears. As Dad embraced me, whispering words of pride and encouragement, I felt a sense of completion wash over me. Later that evening, I stood on the rooftop of our office building, gazing out at the city skyline. The lights of the Westridge complex twinkled in the distance, a beacon of hope and new beginnings. I thought back to the naive, trusting woman I'd been when I first married Mason. She seemed like a stranger now, a distant memory of a life that no longer fit. In her place stood a woman who had faced betrayal, fought back, and emerged stronger. A woman who knew her worth and wasn't afraid to claim her place in the world. As the cool evening breeze caressed my face, I smiled. The future stretched out before me, full of possibilities and challenges. But this time I was ready. Ready to build, to lead, to live on my own terms. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold. A new day was coming, and with it, a new chapter in the story of Lydia Harper. And this time, I would be the author of my own destiny.